please do like, share and subscribe and press the bell icon.
Hello my dear students. So in the previous video we have discussed about elements. I told you certain characteristics of the elements and various aspects of the elements. Today we'll be starting with the compounds. So let me first give you certain examples of the compounds, and from the examples we'll find out the characteristics of the substances which are called as the compound. Now just look here. Suppose if I say that this NaCl, that is sodium chloride, it is a compound. This substance sodium chloride, we all are familiar with sodium chloride. This is nothing but it is a common salt which we all of us consume in our diet. So this comes under the category of the substance called as the compound. Now look here, it is made up of two elements. One element is sodium and another element is chlorine. I am writing now that is one atom of chlorine over here. So by combining these two elements, this compound, that is this substance, this has been formed. Let us take some few more examples. That is water. So this is formed from again two elements. One is hydrogen and another element, that is oxygen. You can also write down the symbol for hydrogen, that is H, and here one molecule of hydrogen or two atoms of hydrogen that is in combining, and here oxygen, that is O. Now in this particular thing, how many atoms of hydrogen? There is two atoms of hydrogen is combining over here. So two atoms of hydrogen is combining together, leading to the formation of one molecule. Okay, and here one atom of oxygen that has been combining over here, and this whole substance, that is water, it is what? One molecule of water that has been formed over here. Okay, so we can say compounds are the substances. These are the pure substances. If you take water into a beaker or into a container and you divide into 5 equal parts, all the parts will be giving you the same taste, the same properties, it will look same, everything will be same. So it is a pure substance. Sodium chloride also, common salt. You take common salt and you divide into various equal parts, and every part of common salt or sodium chloride, it will be same. If you look at it, it will be white in color, the taste will be similar, and we'll find that it has got the same composition, that is sodium and chlorine combined in this ratio. That is one part of sodium, one part of chlorine that has been combined together. We'll go into detail into these examples once again after some time. So these type of substances, they are called as the compounds. So what can we say about the compounds? Let us see the definition of the compound. That is, it is a pure substance. It is a pure substance which has been pure substance composed of what it is composed of? Composed of obviously elements. It may be two elements composed of two or more elements. Two or more elements combined chemically in a definite proportion. These substances are combining in a definite proportion and definite elements are involved over here. So we can say compounds are pure substances. So this is the definition for compounds. That is, compounds are pure substances composed of two or more elements combined chemically in a definite proportion. Now if you just look at this is what? One molecule of sodium chloride. This is again one molecule of water which is having two atoms of hydrogen and one atom of oxygen. So what can we say? That the smallest unit of a compound is what? The smallest unit of a compound The smallest unit of a compound is a molecule. Is a molecule. Suppose if I write down 2 over here, that will be 2 molecules of water. If I write down 3 over here, that will become 3 molecules of sodium chloride. But the simplest unit, the smallest unit of a compound is a molecule. Here 1 molecule of sodium chloride, here 1 molecule of water. Okay. In this particular case, in 1 molecule of sodium chloride, we are having 1 atom of sodium, 1 atom of chlorine. In this 1 molecule of water, we are having 2 atoms of hydrogen and 1 atom of oxygen, and all of them, all these elements, these are the different elements. All these elements, they are chemically combined in a definite proportion. And once the combination, that is, this combination takes place by a chemical reaction. And once the combination has taken place, you cannot separate these elements by physical methods. If you want to separate, then you have to adopt certain chemical methods. That is by simple physical methods, just with your hand, or by filtration, or by you have studied several methods such as winnowing and all those things. You cannot, that is by taking a strainer or sieving. By all those methods, those physical methods, we cannot separate the components of the compound. Certain chemical procedures, certain chemical methods have to be adopted to separate these constituents of the compound. Now let us study something more about the compounds. Let us study some characteristics of the compound. Okay. Now another thing, that is a compound is formed from elements. Let us take an example again. Once again we take the example of sodium chloride. Now this sodium chloride is formed from 2 elements. Which are those 2 elements? That is sodium and chlorine. This is sodium chloride. It is formed from 2 elements. Which are those 2 elements? That is sodium, which we are representing by the formula, that is the symbol is Na, and chlorine. That is symbol is Cl. Okay. Now the properties of this compound is entirely different from the properties of the constituent elements from which it has been formed. Like sodium chloride will be having certain properties, and those properties will be different from the properties of sodium as well as the properties of chlorine. Let us see what are those properties. Now first of all, this sodium chloride, it has been formed when there is a combination, that is NaCl. It is formed by chemical combination between sodium and chlorine. That means, and how they are combining? They are combining in a fixed ratio by mass. That is, mass of sodium is 23 and mass of chlorine is 35.5. So when the sodium and chlorine, they both of them, they have been combining in the ratio. So let me write down in this way, that is sodium, the ratio is 23 and chlorine is 35.5 by mass. There is a fixed amount of sodium and chlorine. They are combining together by mass. Atomic mass of sodium is 23 and chlorine's atomic mass is 35.5. So when they have been combining together in the ratio 23 is to 35.5 by mass, we get the formation of sodium chloride. Then sodium, it is soft metal. Sodium is a soft metal. You must have heard about it. You must have read earlier also. Sodium is such a soft metal. You can cut it with a knife. The way you cut those cakes and all, no, in the same way, the sodium metal, it can be cut with a knife. It is a soft metal. It is silvery grey, whereas highly reactive, soft and silvery grey, and it is also silvery grey, highly reactive. These are the characteristics of sodium. Coming to chlorine. Chlorine is greenish yellow colored gas. Greenish yellow gas. Then it has got a choking smell. Choking smell. And both of them, they are poisonous in nature. But this sodium chloride which we consume, that is common salt, is it poisonous? No, we consume it in our daily food. So both of them, they are poisonous, but this is also poisonous if consumed. But sodium chloride is non-poisonous. So what can we say? Non-poisonous. What else? It is white crystalline substance. White crystalline. White crystalline solid. So you can see sodium chloride is entirely different from the elements from which it has been formed. The properties of sodium chloride is entirely different from the properties of the constituent elements from which it has been formed. I repeat once again, sodium chloride, which is common salt, that is non-poisonous and hence we consume in our daily food. It is also white crystalline solid. You can see small crystals, white in color. It is a solid substance, whereas sodium, it is a soft metal, it is silvery grey. Can you see any greyish tinge over here in sodium chloride? No, we do not see any silvery silvery tinge over here. And it is highly reactive. That is, sodium is highly reactive. It is poisonous. Whereas, in case of chlorine, it is a greenish yellow colored gas. Do we see any greenish yellow colored gas? No. It has got a choking smell. Chlorine has got a choking smell, and this is also poisonous. But whereas sodium chloride is not at all poisonous. So from this we can say that the properties of the compound is entirely different from the properties of the constituent elements from which it has been formed. So these are certain characteristics of the compounds. We come to the some few more characteristics of the compound. So characteristics. So first characteristic, that is, it contains atoms of two or more kinds which are combined chemically in a definite ratio. Combined chemically in a fixed ratio or a definite ratio. In a fixed ratio by mass. This is one of the characteristics. Second characteristics, it is pure and homogeneous. Pure and homogeneous. As I told you that all the samples of sodium chloride, if you are taking one sample of sodium chloride, you divide into equal parts, it will be same throughout. So it is pure and homogeneous. All samples will be pure, identical with, it will be, all samples will be pure, identical in all respect, on all the aspects, and have a definite physical and chemical properties. Definite physical and chemical properties. Then it has got a definite boiling point and melting point. The compounds, they have got a definite boiling point and melting point. You take any sample of a compound, for example, any sample, let that be water. So it will be having a definite boiling point, that is 100 degrees Celsius, and that will be same throughout. Any sample of water you take from anywhere, if no impurities are been mixed into it, the boiling point will be same. So the compounds have got a definite boiling and the melting point. Then the constituents can be separated by chemical methods only. Constituents can be separated by chemical methods only. You cannot separate the constituents by physical methods. Suppose if you are having your carbon dioxide, which is a compound, and if you want to separate carbon from oxygen, you cannot separate by physical method. You have to adopt certain chemical methods. Now let us just have an example over here. That is mercury HGO, that is mercuric oxide. When you heat it, we will be getting mercury and oxygen. Let us balance it 2 over here. So this will be 2 over here, 2 Hg. So this will be 2 Hg. So the constituents of mercuric oxide is what? Mercury and oxygen, and these constituents, they can be separated only by heating. That is only by, so the heating is a chemical method. So it gets separated into mercury and oxygen only on heating, which is a chemical method for separation. This is called as the method of decomposition, which you will study in your higher classes. So right now we will not give much time to the different methods. Then during the formation of a compound, during the formation of a compound, energy is either absorbed or liberated. That means whenever the compound has been formed, either the reaction, that is the formation, the method of formation of a compound, that is the two reactants have been combining together to form the compound, either the energy will be absorbed, energy will be taken in, or the energy will be evolved, energy will be given out. Let us just be clear with this by having an example from this. So I'll just rub this particular portion over here. Okay, or let me write down over here, there's some space. There is first example over here, that is carbon plus oxygen. That is, it has been, it is forming carbon dioxide plus heat. So heat energy is liberated. Next, another example over here, that is, it has got N2 plus O2. Plus we are supplying heat over here, or you can show this over the arrow, that is the heat of how much? We are supplying heat over here, that is 3000 degrees Celsius. We are heating it to a high temperature, it is forming 2NO. So in this, energy is absorbed. Look here, I repeat once again. In this, that is formation of a compound, energy is either absorbed or energy has been given out or liberated. That is, carbon reacts with oxygen, and both of them, they react, they combine together, and during this, they form the carbon dioxide. Both of them, they are reacting with each other, forming carbon dioxide, and heat energy has been given out, heat energy is liberated, and we are also providing some heat energy, but after the reaction takes place, after the combination takes place, heat energy has been given out. In this particular case, we are heating it to a high temperature, that is 3000 degrees Celsius, and in this, heat energy has been absorbed. So heat energy has been absorbed over here. So during the formation of a compound, heat energy is either energy, it can be in any form. Over here we have taken the heat energy. Energy is either absorbed or the energy has been liberated. Then the next point I am writing down over here at the top. It has a definite chemical formula. Definite chemical formula. A compound has a definite formula. For example, that is N2O nitrous oxide, or Na2O. N2 is nitrous oxide, or H2SO4, HNO3, CO2, CO, carbon monoxide. So it has a definite chemical formula. A compound always has got a definite chemical formula. So I hope with this the characteristics are clear. I'll just repeat all the characteristics once again. That is, the compounds, they contain atoms of two or more kinds combined chemically in a fixed ratio by mass. A fixed ratio by mass. I'll give you certain examples based on all this. Then a compound is pure and homogeneous. All samples will be pure, identical, and they will have a definite physical and chemical properties. It has got a definite boiling point and melting point. All the compounds, they will be having a definite melting and the boiling point. Constituents can be separated by chemical methods only. We cannot separate the constituents of a compound by the physical methods. Like for example, 2HCO, that is mercuric oxide over here. When we heat it, it gets separated into mercury and oxygen. So that is a chemical method. Then during the formation of a compound, energy is either absorbed or liberated. So for example, that means energy will be either taken in or energy will be given out. Given out means liberated. So here carbon combines with oxygen forming carbon dioxide and heat energy has been liberated over here. And this we are writing down the heat energy on this side of the arrow means what? Energy has been absorbed. Whenever you find that heat has been written on this side of the arrow, it means energy has been absorbed. When it is on this side, it means heat energy has been liberated. And we are heating at a temperature of 3000 degrees Celsius where the energy been absorbed to form nitric oxide. So we are writing down over here in the bracket over here. Then all the compounds, they have got a definite chemical formula. For example, N2O, H2SO4, HNO3, that is nitric acid, carbon dioxide, that is CO2, carbon monoxide, that is CO, and here this is H2SO4, that is sulfuric acid. So it has been represented by a definite chemical formula. Now let us have some few more examples of the compounds and let us try to understand in a much better way. The first point itself, it says that the atom contains atoms of two or more kinds combined chemically in a fixed ratio by mass. Let me give you one example based on this. That is water. We come again to our same example, water. So here hydrogen and oxygen, they are combining in the ratio that is 1:8. Now you may ask me how it is 1:8. Atomic mass of hydrogen is 1. So 1 into 2 and oxygen's atomic mass is 16. So I am just rubbing off over here so that it becomes, I get some more space to explain all these points. Atomic mass of hydrogen is 1, or let me write down over here, atomic mass of hydrogen is equals to 1 and atomic mass of oxygen that is equals to 16. So what we are doing over here, look here, hydrogen is 2 over here, so 1 into 2 is to oxygen, that is 16. So this is what? 2 is to 16. So 2 ones are 2 eights are, 2 ones are 2 eights are. So what can we say in case of hydrogen? They are both combining in the ratio 1:8 ratio. They are combining in the ratio 1:8 by mass. Why by mass? Because we have considered the atomic mass of both the elements. Then if you compare the characteristics of both of them, look here, suppose if I am writing down water over here, that is H2O, and characteristics of hydrogen and oxygen. Let us see the differences between them. Okay, so here hydrogen and oxygen, that is both of them are gases. Both of them are gases, but here water is a liquid. We all of us know water is a liquid, but both these constituent elements, that is hydrogen and oxygen, both of them, they are gases. Then in case of, okay, what about water? Does it help in combustion or in burning? No, it does not support burning. It does not support burning or combustion. Burning or combustion. It does not burn. Water itself does not burn. But whereas in case of hydrogen, that is hydrogen is combustible. Hydrogen is combustible. It burns. Hydrogen burns. And oxygen, what about oxygen? Oxygen supports combustion. Supports combustion. See, anything with that has to be burnt, it will burn only in presence of oxygen. Why? Because oxygen is a supporter of combustion. Oxygen is a supporter of burning. The process of burning takes place only in the presence of oxygen. If there is no oxygen, the process of burning or combustion will not take place. So hydrogen is combustible, oxygen is supports combustion. But what about water? Water does not support burning or combustion. At the same time, water itself does not burn. On the contrary, water extinguishes the fire. It extinguishes the fire. Extinguishes. extinguishes the fire. Whenever there is a fire, what do? We put water on it to extinguish the fire. So water is used as extinguisher. Water extinguishes the fire, and both these once water has been formed, the components cannot be separated. Constituent elements cannot be separated. Constituent elements cannot be separated. By physical methods. So how can we separate these constituents, that is hydrogen and oxygen, from water molecule? Obviously we can separate it by a chemical method, and that chemical method we call it as electrolysis. Electrolysis. That means what? If you pass an electric current in water in presence of an acid, few drops of an acid, that is sulfuric acid, then we can separate hydrogen and oxygen from the water molecule. So that is a chemical method. We take another example. So you can just go through the differences between water and hydrogen and oxygen. I repeat once again, that is, water is a liquid, but hydrogen and oxygen, both of them, they are the gases. Water does not support burning or combustion. On the contrary, water extinguishes the fire. But hydrogen is a combustible gas, and oxygen will help in the process of burning, that is, it supports combustion process. At the same time, the constituent elements, it cannot, that is hydrogen, oxygen from water, cannot be separated by physical methods. They can only be separated by the chemical methods. That is, the chemical method is called as electrolysis. Electrolysis is nothing but we pass electric current through water in presence of an acid, where hydrogen and oxygen, they can be separated from water. So these are certain characteristics. This is one example along with certain characteristics. We come to another example. FeS, it is nothing but iron sulfide, or we can also call it as iron 2 sulfide. At this present moment, I will not tell you why it is called as 2 iron sulfide or iron 2 sulfide. So for simplicity, we can just write down over here just simply iron sulfide. So this is iron sulfide, and how it has been formed is formed by chemical reaction between iron and sulfur. What chemical reaction? That is when we heat iron in presence of sulfur, that is Fe plus S. When we heat it, when heating has to be done, when we heat both these elements, then we get iron sulfide. Now what happens then? What mass and how much amount of iron and sulfur, that is, let us see that they combine in a fixed ratio by mass, that is 7:4. Now how do they get 7:4? Let me see. Atomic mass of iron is 56. Atomic mass of sulfur is equals to 32. So what we will be doing over here, that is, let me show it over here, that is towards one of the side, instead of showing it over here, that is FeS. So atomic, that is 56 is to 32. So 8 4s are 32, and this is 7s are. So they have been iron and sulfur, they are combined in the ratio 7:4 by mass. Then let us see the differences between both of them. That is, let us write down iron sulfide on this side and iron and sulfur on this side. Let us come to the differences between them. So iron is a grayish black metal. Iron is a grayish black metal and metal in nature. What about sulfur? Sulfur is yellow. Sulfur is yellow and non-metallic. At the same time, it is somewhat powdered, amorphous. So we can call that as it is in the powdery form. That is amorphous. Okay. Now this is greyish black metal. What about iron sulfide? Iron sulfide is a black solid. Iron sulfide is a black solid. Then at the same time, iron, it can be attracted by metal. Sorry, it can be attracted by magnet. I made a mistake. Iron, it can be attracted by magnet, and sulfur, it is soluble in carbon disulfide. Soluble in carbon disulfide. Formula for carbon disulfide is CS2. Sulfur is soluble in carbon disulfide. What about iron? That is iron sulfide. It is not attracted. First of all, it is so it is not attracted by, it is a black solid, not attracted by the magnet. And it is not soluble or insoluble in carbon disulfide. So you can see the color of, if you compare, you will find that the properties of the constituent elements are totally different from these properties are totally different from the compound. There is iron sulfide which has been formed over here. So we can say properties of a compound are entirely different from the constituent elements from which it has been formed. We'll just go through these properties once again. Iron sulfide, how it has been formed when it has been chemically combined. How it has been chemically combined when we are heating it. And when we are taking the ratio, that is, they have been taken in the ratio 7:4 by mass. How we get this 7:4? Atomic mass of iron is 56, sulfur is 32. So we just get the simplest ratio, that is 7:4 over here. Now, iron, that is greyish black metal, but whereas iron sulfide is black solid. Again, sulfur is yellow, non-metallic and amorphous. And this together, because both of them have been combined together, so that is a black solid substance. Iron is attracted by the magnet, whereas iron sulfide is not attracted by the magnet. Sulfur is soluble in carbon disulfide, that is CS2. Carbon disulfide's formula is CS2, whereas iron sulfide is insoluble or is not soluble in carbon disulfide. Some few more examples of the compounds are water, carbon monoxide, sodium chloride. Let me write down, that is NaCl. All these NaCl, I already gave you the example. Carbon monoxide, carbon dioxide, then magnesium oxide, then magnesium sulfate, magnesium chloride, etc. Vast number of compounds can be formed by combination of the elements. So I hope by now it's clear to you about compounds and their properties. So with this we complete with the compounds. In your textbook certain few more examples and the formulas have been given. See that you go through them, or when I'll be sending you the notes, you just learn from the notes. Thank you, students.